Hello, and welcome to the National Architectural Accrediting Board non-voting team member training presentation for the 2013 visit cycle. My name is Andrea Rutledge, and I'm the NAB's Executive Director. What is accreditation? We start at the beginning here. Accreditation is a voluntary quality assurance process, and it's important to remember that it's characterized by these 5 elements. It's provided through private agencies like the NAAB. It requires self-evaluation by the institution or program. There's a visit. Recommendations are made by trained and expert peers, and institutions have the opportunity to respond to most steps in the process. The U.S. model of accreditation has remained relatively stable over the past 60 years, and it is characterized by these 4 elements: independent decision-making, context, academic freedom, and respect for diversity of thought. It's important to remember, too, that there's a big difference between regional accreditation and specialized accreditation, although the processes are essentially the same. Institutional accreditation, or regional accreditation, accredits a single university. Specialized accreditation evaluates a particular unit, like the Masters of Architecture or the School of Law. And many of the specialized accrediting agencies are associated with the professional societies in their disciplines. Accreditation in architecture is unique, and it's characterized by 2 key elements. First, the use of student work to determine whether or not a particular degree program is delivering on student performance. And second, that the standards are defined by the profession, the academy, regulators, and students. The NAAB is sometimes referred to as the collateral's collateral. It was founded in 1940 by the American Institute of Architects, the Association of Collegiate Schools of Architecture, and the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards to, quote, produce and maintain current a list of accredited schools of architecture in the United States and its possessions. The prime directive of the NAB is this: it was ever and always the intention of the founders not to create conditions that would lead toward standardization of educational philosophy. It was very important from the beginning that every institution that wished to offer a NAB-accredited program be able to do so within their own context. Therefore, programs differ from institution to institution, and we believe that that's what makes our system healthy. Beginning in 1975, the NAB started accrediting degree programs only and not schools of architecture, and the conditions have emphasized self-assessment and student performance. When the directors approved the 2009 conditions for accreditation, they maintained their commitment to both of these as core tenets of the NAB's criteria. You're probably viewing this video because you're preparing for a spring visit, and I should let you know that it's being recorded in late September. So at this point in time, we are in the middle of setting dates for visits for the spring. What's important to remember from your perspective as a non-voting team member is that the visits take place from late January until early April, and that visiting team reports have to be finished 30 days after the visit ends. 4 weeks before the July meeting, the VTRs are posted for the board to begin their review. For those of you who may be interested or are participating in visits scheduled for the fall, the sequence is essentially the same, but the architecture program reports aren't due until March. We believe there are 6 elements that are important for any visit, and we're going to take some time with each of them here. The core documents for 2013 visiting teams are the 2009 Conditions for Accreditation and the Procedures for Accreditation 2012 edition. There will also be a team member handbook. It is currently being revised for 2013. All of these documents either are or will be available from the NAB website. I strongly encourage you to download the first 2 as soon as you can. The conditions for accreditation have 2 parts, and we're going to spend a little bit more time on each of them later in this presentation. The Procedures for Accreditation 2012 edition have significantly more sections than this, but these are the 3 that I encourage you to look at first. Section 2 on terms, Section 5 on continuing accreditation, Section 9 on conflicts of interest, and then to look at the report templates in Appendix 1. For initial and continuing accreditation, there are 4 members of a team, plus yourself. For concurrent review for continuing accreditation of more than one program, teams are increased to 5, plus yourself. The team chair is really the leader of the whole process. He or she is the chief liaison between the team, the program, and the NAAB in the run-up to and during a visit. They have responsibility for setting the dates, for reviewing the self-study or architecture program report. During the visit, they lead meetings, they keep the visit on schedule, and after the visit, this person is responsible for finishing the visiting team report. The principal role of a non-voting team member is to facilitate communication and foster a spirit of collaboration. Your responsibilities as a non-voting team member include participating throughout the entire site visit, really from start to finish, from Saturday afternoon until Wednesday at noon. We also invite you to offer constructive comments and advice to the visiting team. You're invited to participate in the last team work session. This is essentially the session where the visiting team report is composed, if you're invited by the chair. We ask you to agree in advance on the principles of confidentiality and conflicts of interest, and to complete this training program. The team chair is responsible for keeping the team focused, collegial, on schedule, and for keeping a team healthy and focused and moving forward. That said, all team members are encouraged to ask each other questions, challenge each other's thinking, and work together towards common ground. We ask you please to resist the impulse to give advice to the program or to make excuses on its behalf. It's also extremely important that you do not share information between the team room and the program administrator. And most importantly, eat, drink lots of fluids, and rest. This is an intensive 4 days, and we want you to stay fresh all the way through. A typical visit schedule starts on Saturday and ends on Wednesday. It does not start on Sunday morning, contrary to popular belief. It begins late on Saturday afternoon. It's a full day on Sunday, a full day on Monday, a full day on Tuesday, and a half a day on Wednesday. Once the exit meetings are concluded, please leave campus. It's very important that when the visit ends, the team leaves, and the communication between the team and the program itself has ended. We'll talk very briefly here about the conditions for accreditation. This is what you're going to be spending most of your time on while you're there. Part 1 covers institutional support and commitment to continuous improvement. It has these 5 sections. Each section is intended to link to the one before it. So for example, learning culture and social equity should be reflective of history and mission. Responses to the 5 perspectives should be responsible to learning culture. Long-range planning should demonstrate how the 5 perspectives are used, and self-assessment should demonstrate how it informs long-range planning. Section 2 is largely the section on resources. Section 3 is a section that includes a lot of statistical reports, as well as the faculty credentials. This gives you an opportunity to see the faculty as a whole and to understand how each individual faculty member's scholarship, experience, and education prepared him or her to teach in the subject areas where they are assigned. Section 4 is a list of policies and related documents. Generally, these will no longer be included in the architecture program report, but they will be available in the team room. Quite a few of them will be available online. One of their responsibilities may be, you may be asked actually by a team member to check on these, particularly if they're online. Section 2, Educational Outcomes and Curricular Framework. The first section is the one everyone is most interested in, the student performance criteria. Student performance criteria are grouped together. Critical thinking and representation is Realm A. Realm B, integrated building practices, technical skills, and knowledge. This includes comprehensive design. You can expect to spend a lot of time on the one subject of comprehensive design. Please read this carefully before you start your visit. And the final realm, C, leadership and practice. You probably noticed as we went along that student performance criteria are arranged with those that are achieved at the level of ability first, and those achieved at the level of understanding are second. Section 2, regional accreditation. This is usually a letter confirming the status of the institution with its regional accreditor. Professional degrees and curriculum will outline what courses are taken when and what courses are taken in what sequence over the course of the accredited program. And the final section, curriculum review and development, will demonstrate what the process is within the department for curriculum review and who's engaged in that process. Section 3. In this section, programs have to demonstrate that they have both a policy and a process for evaluating students when they're admitted to the program. You'll see at the bottom of this slide a reference to a January 2010 memo. That memo will be included in the team member handbook. And Section 4 is the section on public information. Almost all of the ways that a program complies with Section 4 are online. You may again be asked to check URLs here. The visiting team room. I thought it was important to spend some time talking about the visiting team room because you will be spending so much time in it while you're on a visit. It has 3 characteristics. It has everything in it that you need to complete your review of the program. It is secure, well-lit, soundproof, and accessible only to the team. Members of the faculty, students, visitors, staff members, the program administrator, no one is allowed in the team room unless they are explicitly invited to be there by the chair. And generally, we hope it's in the same building as the program. This isn't always possible. Nevertheless, here are a few team rooms over the last few years. Visiting Team Report. This is the last key section. I ask you also to look closely at Section 5 in the Procedures for Accreditation. This outlines the content and format for a Visiting Team Report more explicitly. It's important to remember that there are 2 purposes to this document. It is to document the findings of the team. The prose needs to be clear and succinct, and it then advises the board and supports a recommendation on a term of accreditation. There are 4 parts to the report. We strongly encourage you to work on Part 2 first, compliance with the conditions. Completing Part 2 will help you write Part 1. You'll see the instructions for Appendix 2. This is where you want to highlight something the program is doing particularly well, and then signing the report is the last section. We come to the last section of this presentation, and I can't stress enough how important this is. The team's recommendation on a term of accreditation remains confidential in perpetuity. I should also point out here that you shouldn't know it. But sometimes it's hard to keep all these things sorted out and separated. Anytime you might become aware of the team's deliberations or the result of the team's deliberations relative to a recommendation on a term, you must keep this to yourself. This is one of the principles of confidentiality by which you are bound by agreeing to serve as a non-voting team member. It's also important to remember and note that you come across a lot of information. You read a lot of confidential and sensitive documents over the course of a visit. Whatever you may learn from those also needs to be kept confidential in perpetuity. And I can't enforce this enough. Failure to maintain confidentiality is grounds for reconsideration of a term of accreditation. That brings us to the end of our presentation. I know this has been brief and I know it's been rushed, but if you have questions or you have comments, I hope you'll call or write. Our phone number and email address are here. I also want to thank you for taking time to contribute to the work of the NAAB as a non-voting team member, to contribute your time to the program that you're going to visit. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.